Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Justin High, co-founder of Rebalance Health, is a wellness innovator and sought-after speaker, blending industrial design expertise with an MBA from Pepperdine to pioneer science-backed solutions for hormonal balance, sleep, and stress mastery. Featured in the upcoming Amazon Prime documentary Shield, which is a really clever play on words, by the way. We'll tag that so you can check it out. Justin's new book, Stress Nation, which is launching in September of 2025, reveals how tech-driven lifestyles are disrupting cortisol, what he calls the master hormone, and provides practical, research-based strategies to restore calm, resilience, and peak performance. Inspired by his wife's Cushing's syndrome diagnosis, Justin combines personal experience, deep research, and cultural insight to help audiences transform their health and thrive in today's overstimulated world. Justin offers not only an urgent wake-up call, but also actionable strategies to reclaim calm, restore hormonal balance, and improve sleep in a world that is addicted to constant input. His story is ideal for people exploring health, tech culture, performance, or the mind-body connection. Justin High, what an absolute honor just to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thank you so much, Casey.
It's such an honor to host you. It's such a fascinating topic. And I don't know if there's any other topics that just completely flies in the face of the reality of the modern world. There's the whole side of things of the way we evolved, how we're designed as humans, what we use cortisol for, and what the terrible reality of our own situation is in 2025. How do you help people accept that both of those things are true?
Slowly, patiently. It's very difficult to speak to someone that isn't willing to change or to listen to the simple cause and effect that we find ourselves in today. It's an unprecedented time, and we've taken about 30 years to get here, and now it's really reaching this boiling point where we really need to take action for our well-being, our wellness for the next generation. We just need to learn what we were designed to do as humans and what we are currently doing that is going against basically nature.
Wow. Well, I'm really excited to talk about this topic. I always tell my clients just to have less stress, and I don't find that advice to be very helpful. So I'm
No.
hoping to get some of your insights today. How did you become so interested in this topic?
Just research, honestly. My partner and I were looking into hormones. We were specifically looking at peptides around 2018, 2019, CJC Moralin, IPA Moralin, Sermoralin, all these different types of peptides that were becoming quite popular. And then 2019, 2020, the government classified all those peptides pretty much as biologics. So couldn't take them legally. And so HRT just kind of took off like crazy at that point. It was going through COVID, and it just started to go faster and faster and faster and elevate. And we started taking a deep dive into endocrinology, which we had a history of exploring in prior businesses. And when we kind of went through the research, I just latched onto cortisol. I found it to be extremely interesting and highly kind of ignored as to what it does and how it functions. This layman's approach was it's your fight or flight hormone, it's your stress hormone, and people left it at that. But what I really found out was it really is the master hormone, depending on how high or how low cortisol is in the body actually determines how much of all the other hormones you make. So if cortisol is super high, you're not going to make much estrogen, progesterone, or testosterone.
Yeah. Interesting. We mentioned in the introduction your wife and struggles she's had in the past with Cushing's disease. Can you explain how that's related to cortisol as well?
Cushing's is something that happens with someone very small percentage, fraction of a percent of the population, tiny amount, that has elevated cortisol levels that cannot be balanced down. They're just always super high, dangerously high, and it's a very serious disease. Some of the symptoms have been made popular by Amy Schumer, who unfortunately has suffered from the disease as well, and people call it, Cushing's face, right? Swelling of the face. It's natural enlargement. You can see the puffiness. It's a little insulting when people on TikTok and Instagram talk about cortisol face as just something that the modern world wakes up with if they have high levels of cortisol, which is nonsense. It's simply you've had too much sodium, or you're waking up with a slight puffiness to your face from 101 other reasons. It has nothing to do with cortisol. But if you do have Cushing's, that is a potential symptom and side effect, and it's very serious. My
Mm,
wife was diagnosed with Cushing's 2 years into developing the company. It was not something that was instrumental in forming the company. It just so happened that the universe hit me over the head with a brick and said, okay, we're going to hit you personally here so you can kind of really take this seriously. And that's what kind of drove us even more passionately into this space to figure out what can we do to help calm cortisol down, not as a solution for Cushing's, because we're not a pharmaceutical and we make no claims around that.
yeah, got it. Okay. And in your personal life, being an entrepreneur, being somebody who's really busy, what has been your experience, just personally with your own stress levels and your own cortisol levels? How does that manifest and how has that helped you on your journey as well?
Well, I used to be of the mindset that, how many hours you stay awake working was a badge of honor. It doesn't actually help you. It's not a badge of honor. Um, Learning how to prioritize, how you can function at your very, very best is really what this is about, because the human body needs 7 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep. And people that talk, I can survive on five. You really can't. Scientifically proven, you cannot. There might be a small anomaly of people that can, but for the 99% of the population, you actually need the 7 to 8 hours. And that is critical because if cortisol is high when you try to go to bed, you can't fall asleep and you can't stay asleep. And so you wake up in the night multiple times. And that disrupts your body's natural ability to manufacture hormones naturally without HRT. And those hormones are what you need to function the very next day. So you make all your hormones pretty much in your sleep for the following day. If you wake up in the night, you are now compromising your body's ability to make those hormones. And even waking up once at night is clinically diagnosed as a poor night's sleep. And so it's really important to really protect your sleep. And the older you get, the more maniacal you have to be for protecting your sleep, because that's how you show up in the world the next day. If you wake up, you know how it feels like you've done an all-nighter, you partied all night, you did something, you were up all night, you just don't feel great the next day, right? And that is made up of all the different components that you need to function as a human being. So all the hormones that you need to function, the energy levels, the mental clarity, everything shows up the next day. So that's why it's really important to control cortisol, because it is literally the gatekeeper to how you sleep, and how you sleep determines how you show up the next day. So how you showed up today was all based on how you slept last night.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. Of all the hormones, I don't know of many other hormones, save maybe insulin, that everybody just kind of considers as a negative hormone. This thing is bad. Cortisol is bad. It's bad to have too much cortisol. Can you wax poetic about cortisol and what it serves and why it's actually good to have high cortisol sometimes, just not great to have it all the time, like you're describing?
Cortisol is not a bad guy, right? If you have too much of it, it's not great for your body, right? That's what we're talking about. But you need cortisol. It's what wakes you up in the morning, right? And you want high levels of cortisol in the morning as you wake up. That's what's going to get you going, focused, ready to go. But when I say high, it's high in terms of within normal ranges, not elevated levels, right? We don't want cortisol to get into the super high levels because it's your body's alarm system. It's your body's security system. It's what tells you to run when there's danger. Okay, that's what the alarm system is. And then adrenaline kicks in, and that's the action hormone. So cortisol is fabulous because it helps with metabolism, it helps with energy levels, clarity, immune system. There's so many wonderful things that cortisol does, and it's designed to be go off at a high level when there's danger around. Simple as that. With the onset of technology, the very hormone designed to protect us and keep us safe is the one that's causing havoc in our world. Because let's be honest, when we're surrounded with notifications, email bings, buzzes, vibrations from all the different devices that we have, from cell phones to smartphones to laptops, etc., right? Your body is now unable to determine whether it's an alarm that needs to go off or it's a calendar invite. You just don't know. And that's what's happening. That inability to determine what's a true an alarm and what's not has become very vague for the human body. And therefore, we are constantly at that elevated fight or flight level of cortisol. And why is this important? When you're in elevated cortisol levels, Your body doesn't need certain body functions because you're in an emergency state. Okay? So what does it turn off? It turns off metabolism. It turns off libido. And all of a sudden, these functions that we take for granted, well, I'm gaining weight. I can't lose weight. I'm eating healthy. I work out, but I can't lose the weight around my midsection. Yeah, cortisol's responsible because you're elevated. You know, my libido is non-existent. Why? Guess what? Your body thinks you're in fight or flight, not in rest and digest, and it's not allowing you to feel like you're in a safe space so that your libido can come back. And again, you're not making those hormones whilst you're sleeping. So low testosterone, low progesterone, low estrogen, etc. So it all comes down to very simple mechanics on how the human body was designed. We're designed to sleep, regenerate, and recharge at night. When the sun goes down, from very simplistic terms, we're supposed to be resting and recharging. When the sun comes up, we get on with the day and we thrive. We weren't designed to function on 2 to 3 hours of sleep. And that's called our natural circadian rhythm. We have completely disrupted our natural circadian rhythm with technology. And if you go back 30 years, even more, 40 years, right? We were more community-based. We weren't so global and international, right? We didn't have access to all the information at a minute-by-minute play that we have today, right? You can turn on the news and you've got news all day long, 24/7, right? You want Netflix and entertainment, you have that 24/7. You want to communicate with anyone, you've got email 24/7, right? Prior to the internet, email, we didn't have that, right? There was a news hour. There was a cartoon morning show, right? Not 24 hours of cartoons, right? There was go to the Blockbusters or go to the video store and get a movie. There might be 1 or 2 copies of that movie if you're lucky, right? Because they didn't have tons of copies. So you had to wait. You'd watch 1 or 2 on the weekend with your family, right? We went outside and we played. We had feet in the ground. We had sunlight on our bodies. We weren't stationary sitting at computers all day long. And if we wanted information, if it didn't exist in the newspaper or at the library or Encyclopedia Britannica, it didn't exist. And now today we have flooded of good information, but let's be honest, we also know the internet's flooded with bad information, wrong information. And that just, again, raises cortisol levels. We haven't learned to turn off.
Mm. Wow, there's a really funny video of somebody closer to our age explaining to a millennial like what it was like to finish a season of The Office and be on like a 6-month cliffhanger of not understanding what was going to come, or like if you didn't watch Seinfeld at 7 p.m. on Thursday night, like you were not going to see that episode. You missed it. It was done. So yeah, definitely different times. And so what you're describing, I'll often describe to my clients is like we used to experience more of like an acute stress. Something stressful may have happened. You and I both live in areas where we have access to mountains and we can be out in nature away from other people in places where there could be predators. But running away from a predator is still like, it's newsworthy. It makes the headlines on the news. So I don't even think we were running all the time from predators the way people describe, but sure enough, I'm sure it would happen every now and again that something stressful would happen. We have this amazing response in our body where our bodies release this hormone cortisol to deal with stress. We have that fight, flight, or freeze kind of reaction, and we deal with it. But it's so temporary, short term that it comes down, and we end up spending more of the day in a low cortisol state where now it's just so much stress, like you're talking about, like it's all the time, 24/7, constant access to your phone and the news, like you're describing. What we're experiencing today is the chronic stress, and just experiencing that all day, every day, day to day is what really breaks down the system. Is that right?
Yeah, we were designed to respond to stress in short bursts, not live inside of it. We're living inside of it today.
Got it. So at one of the places I used to work, we used to do a cortisol test, and originally it was blood work, but then we shifted over to do cortisol testing where it would be a saliva test done 4 times inside the day to show the effect of cortisol during the day. Is that something that you recommend as well?
No, not at all.
Is there any kind of testing you're in favor of?
My chief medical officers, I have 2 of them, Dr. Romy Mustag and Dr. Todd Dorfman. We all agree cortisol is so unpredictable. right? You can have a very stressful morning. You go get a blood test or a urine test, saliva test, and it's high. You could be on vacation, take it, and it could be very low. It fluctuates all the time. The most accurate cortisol test is most definitely a 24-hour urine test, which basically means you carry around this massive jug, and every time you need to urinate, you go in the jug, and then you give that and to the hospital and they analyze it. Again, carrying around a jug and peeing in it is stressful in of itself. And so I'm not a big proponent of that. I like to track sleep because ultimately, if your cortisol is in the normal levels, you're going to sleep better. Right. So I'm not looking at the inputs based on the time in which you actually took the test because it's a snapshot in time. Right. And it can be stressful. Something could have happened. You have to quickly take it. You forgot about it. You spit on your cortisol levels are higher. So for me, it all comes down to sleep. If you're getting better sleep scores, if you're getting better quality deep and REM sleep cycles, then you know inherently your cortisol is lower. If you are getting less sleep, you know your cortisol is higher. And when people, if you don't mind, we'll go back to Rebalance Health, the products that we developed. Our customers are constantly telling us, I've never had such good sleep scores. They're constantly saying, I get more badges and awards from whatever device they're using to track their sleep. They can feel better. You don't have to have a test every single time to know if you're feeling better. Because let's be honest, when you go to a doctor for HRT, which I'm a proponent of, by the way, HRT is a great solution for people that need to augment their hormones. But the doctor's going to ask you, once they've taken the blood panel, how are you feeling? How are you sleeping? How are your energy levels? How's your libido? How's your appetite? How's your weight? How's your muscle mass? All subjective questions. You go away for 6 to 8 weeks, whatever. They come back and they do the test again. And then they ask you the same questions. Okay, we gave you some additional hormone replacement therapy. Here are your numbers, but the numbers don't tell me the story. You have to tell me the story. How are you sleeping? How are you feeling? How's your energy levels, etc. And based on how you're feeling, if the numbers, you say I'm feeling good, then those numbers are the numbers that are right for you. If you say I feel terrible, then those numbers that came back from the blood test, they're not right for you. And the doctor will make a very educated recommendation on how to augment the therapy so that we can get you to the place where you feel fabulous. And so, doctors and HRT is an experiment, one human at a time, because everyone's DNA and the way that their kind of ratios of hormones show up are going to be different, one person from the next. And so literally, it's all about controlling your cortisol and tracking your sleep for me. Because the numbers will say one thing, but ultimately, at the end of the day, it's how you feel, how you feel you're showing up in the world. Are you calmer? Are you sleeping better? Are you at the weight that you'd like? Are you getting on with your life in a way that makes you happy?
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't agree more. I think over time, I've put less and less value in metrics that we can track, including things like blood work, because you're right, it's a snapshot in time. And we've learned you can fluctuate things like, say, your blood sugar or your LDL cholesterol by 100 points in a day pretty
Yes.
easily by doing different protocols. So I do like that approach of just like tracking sleep and making sure that you're feeling better is like the ultimate indicator of whether you're moving in the right direction or not. As we are talking about good sleep, what can we say is the counter hormone to the cortisol? Like if cortisol is low, can we assume that hormones like melatonin are then allowed to go high? Is that the way to think about it?
Not really. If cortisol is low, again, let's put it in perspective. Cortisol should be high in the morning, start to come down, and then drop dramatically as you go towards the evening and be as low as possible at night. When it's low as possible, it can hand off to melatonin. So think of it as being in a relay race, right? You've got cortisol running throughout the day. It's losing energy, losing energy, losing energy. And about the time that we want to be winding down, getting ready for sleep, hands off the baton to melatonin. Now, melatonin takes over. It prepares you for sleep and gets you into that sleepy state so that you can fall asleep quickly and stay asleep. Melatonin doesn't put you to sleep. It puts you in a state of getting ready for sleep. And that's really what's important. And as that hands off, then you're good. Now, again, if you can sleep and stay asleep, you stand the best opportunity for your body to make the hormones that it's able to make at the time in which the time of your life that you're in to give you the hormones that you need. Now, if you don't sleep and you don't make the hormones that you need, things start showing up that you don't want them to, especially for women going through perimenopause. Because when you're going through perimenopause, you need to make as much estrogen and progesterone as your body possibly can, and testosterone and all the other hormones that your body can for you at this time in your life. If you're getting good sleep and your body's able to make those hormones in those ratios, we've seen in our clinical studies that most perimenopausal symptoms become substantially lighter. But if you don't sleep, your body can't make those hormones, and then all those symptoms are exacerbated. And I know it's a chicken and egg. Women, well, you can't fall asleep if I'm having a hot flash. I get all that. But we have done IRB studies. We've got 4 published medical studies in medical journals proving that if we can help you get better sleep with our products, what happens is your body gets better at falling asleep and staying asleep, and your symptoms start to subside. It's not just a small number. We did over 300 and I think 20 people in our clinical studies combined, and we had 100% efficacy, meaning everyone saw a benefit. We didn't have one side effect, and the average woman saw a reduction of their perimenopause symptoms by 80%.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, substantial.
That's not just me blabbing. This is true medical published journals. You can look it all up. It's all clinically proven and verified by doctors and scientists and third party reviewed and published. So it's all about learning the cause and effect. And I think what we do a terrible job in today's world of communicating that, because we don't have the time to. It's kind of an oxymoron, right? People have few moments to spare every day to learn something new, look at something. They scroll the length of the Eiffel Tower every day. And there are a lot of companies trying to educate from a place of authenticity and truth, trying to truly help people. And their ads are being passed up all the time because the consumer doesn't know what's true or false anymore. There's so much misinformation out there. And so going on these podcasts is really helping us get the message out there, Casey. So we can't thank you enough. We actually are one of the good guys. We have the science and we have a solution that can help.
Yeah. Well, we really appreciate all the education around this topic because it is overwhelming for a lot of people. And yeah, so when we're talking about improving sleep quality, I'll often say that if you're starting to think about your sleep quality when it's getting dark, you're already too late. What things can people be doing during the day to help get them set up for a good night's sleep later on?
Absolutely. We like to say that a good night's sleep starts the moment you wake up. Okay, because you're preparing for sleep for tonight. And so it's all about just really being very mindful of the pace in which you operate in your world, because really that's what's gotten away from us. Everyone is always in a mad rush. Everyone's always trying to get from A to B to C. And if we can calm down just a little bit, if we can take a breath, if we can set ourselves up for success, one of the big things for me is do not jump on your cell phone the moment you wake up. You want to try and move, get some exercise, go for a walk, get out into the world, get some sunshine on your body, on your face. That stimulates more cortisol, right? Gets you going. If you can, work out in the morning. Best time to work out is first thing in the morning. Gets your energy going, gets everything moving, and spikes your cortisol. We want to increase our cortisol in the morning in a healthy way to get us ready to go. And then throughout the day, it's again just checking in with yourself, making sure that you're calm. And if you're not, pop a Rebalance lozenge. We offer mint lozenges for men, women, and everyone in between to support them keeping their cortisol levels in normal levels, right? So they're little mint lozenges. You put them in your mouth, you suck on them, and they have all natural herbs and ingredients in there, herbs and roots and so forth, like ashwagandha, maca, L-theanine, different types of mushrooms from cordyceps to reishi, L-theanine, magnesium, zinc. There's over 20 ingredients in the lozenges. But what they do is they help keep you at a more of an even level. And that's the biggest thing that people normally say is it just keeps me more even, takes the highs away and keeps the lows away and keeps me more where I need to be. And then, of course, try and understand your mechanism as a human body, right? As we're getting older, as we enter our mid 40s and 50s and 60s, we don't have the bladder control we used to, right? Let's just be honest. We're aging, right? We don't have the bladder of a 20-year-old. And so if you have late dinner and you have something to drink, you're going to wake up in your sleep and go to the bathroom. So try to set yourself up for more success. Eat 3 to 4 hours before going to bed, if you possibly can, in order to make sure your bladder is empty. Try to unwind, no screens, no devices, at least an hour or two before bed. Try and stay away from, don't watch a horror movie just before bed, right? Don't check the news going before bed, Try and keep that stress and anxiety level as low as possible. Set yourself up so you're preparing yourself for sleep. And we call this sleep hygiene, right? You want to prepare yourself for sleep. And so by the time you go to bed and you put your head on the pillow, your cortisol should be as low as possible and you should pass out. But if you're running around, having meals, taking care of work, emails, looking at social media news, and then you say, I'm going to go to bed now, it's no wonder most people stay awake in bed going, I can't fall asleep.
Gotcha. I love that you mentioned getting outside and getting sunshine. I'm looking out my window right now. It's a beautiful, clear day here in the Salt Lake Valley, blue skies. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we've been telling people that blue light is bad for people. But it's a timing thing. People are told that blue lights from the screens, they should be told the blue lights from the screens late at night is not the best thing. But the blue light that you get during the day, the bright sunshine you get, helps to set those hormones correctly. Like you said, to get the big surge in cortisol early, thinking about it almost like a pendulum. Like if you can get that big surge of cortisol, you're more likely to get that big fall in cortisol later in the day and have better sleep. How important is it to get that big bright daylight sunshine?
I think it's critical. There's so many benefits to being outside and in the sun. Big believer in grounding and getting your feet into the earth and connecting. We're not supposed to have electrical charge, and obviously the rubber on our feet and the carpets and everything, we generate this charge which we shouldn't have in our bodies. So putting your feet in the ground neutralizes that instantly, and it's very, very healthy. It's been proven time and time again, and you can look at the documentary I think on Amazon called Grounding. The Grounding movie tells you all about that. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. Blue light comes from the sun. And that's what helps trigger cortisol in our bodies, right? Our bodies are designed to react to that and get going. Blue light comes from your computer monitors, your screens, even your light bulbs, right? That's where blue light comes from. And so what's made a big kind of comeback or surge in interest over the past 5 to 10 years is blue light glasses. And they do work. But you are tricking your body at night by looking at these different devices we have in our homes that emit blue light into thinking it's daylight, and therefore the body surges cortisol. And so you want to reduce blue light in order to stop your body from releasing more and more cortisol, which will prevent you from falling asleep and staying asleep. So it's all connected and based around the circadian rhythm. And what the blue light glasses aren't kind of truly educating people on is this cause and effect, that the blue light spikes your cortisol. Cortisol prevents you from falling asleep, staying asleep, and that's where you make your hormones. So if you're not getting your 7 to 8 hours of hormone production, you're at a hormone deficit. No wonder you're struggling the next day. And consecutive days, you're going down in this spiral down until you have no choice and you want HRT. Again, nothing wrong with HRT, but you can fix the majority of your symptoms yourself by fixing your schedule.
I love that. What are your best tips and tricks for somebody to practically kind of help them get away from the screens later at night? I know blue light glasses definitely help, and there's settings on the phone that you can change,
For
settings
sure.
on your TV. But what are some of the practical tips of all the health tips and tricks I give people, getting somebody to turn off their screen later at night when they feel like that is the only time they can do what you're saying and like unwind, relax, the kids are in bed, I finally have some me time after a super busy day. Like the last thing they want to do is turn off Netflix. What if they're not willing to do that? Or, but first of all, can you get them to do that? And if not, what other things can you recommend to kind of mitigate the damage that could do?
That's really where we came full circle to the first question. Are people willing to do this? How important is your quality of life to you is the question. And I know women going through perimenopause, that's a no-brainer for them because they're suffering so badly. And so they'll do anything to stop the hot flashes or the brain fog or the weight gain. And I don't blame them one bit. So women seem to be far more incentivized to do it because they can actually physically notice a difference. Guys, maybe not so much. But really, it's whatever you're willing to do. One of the big things I like to do is connect with my wife, right? You know, And the animals, we go for a walk. We'll go, we'll do some light movement, right? You don't want to work out and go for a run at night because, again, spikes your cortisol. So going for a nice walk, that's a great thing to do. Read a book. If you've got to watch TV or movie, do so. Wear blue light glasses. Try not to watch anything that's going to stimulate your stress hormone, right? So nothing like scary thrillers and horrors and all those types of things that, will cause your body to react in the way that it will typically do so. So really, it's all about understanding the cause and effect. And when people understand the cause and effect, they make their own decisions. Um, I like to have or suggest to people to make a routine for going to bed. So you take a warm bath, throw some magnesium in there, do things that kind of relax you, meditate, read a book, do something an hour or two beforehand that puts a kind of a regimen together. But the most important thing is your body wants to know it's safe. Okay. When it feels like it's not safe, cortisol starts to spike and starts to elevate. So consistency is the key for cortisol. So try to have the same sleep time, right? Trying to go to bed the same time every night. Try and be predictable with your food and your meals because your body doesn't want to have surprises, which again would spike cortisol. It seems very boring, but happiness can be boring, right? It really comes down to that. You don't have to be a Buddhist monk and go meditate for 10 hours a day to get there, but making some adjustments to your lifestyle on prioritizing sleep is probably the key to calming cortisol down, optimizing your natural hormone production. Protect your sleep.
Yeah. No, I
That's
love that. I couldn't agree more about having a nighttime routine. A few years ago, getting a sauna was such a big change, and just having that as part of my nightly routine, before bed, my body craves it. I sleep really well afterwards. You mentioned grounding, adding grounding sheets to my bed several years ago also helped quite a bit. So I love all those tips and tricks. Is there a difference for somebody that is having difficulty falling asleep versus somebody who's having trouble staying asleep? I've recently worked with somebody where that's been the case. Is there a different way that you approach either of those two scenarios?
Well, staying asleep, it would be why are they waking up? So what is causing them to wake up? Is their room too hot? Are they got polyester clothing on, which is trapping the heat in because our bodies want to be in a cooler environment for sleeping, right? I believe it's like 62 to 64, 5, 6 degrees, something like that is the optimum temperature, right? You want to sleep naked. You don't want to sleep in clothes that get you tied up and wrapped up and can cause heat to get trapped in. So there are lots of tips and tricks that talk about for sleep hygiene. So staying asleep could be a function of environment. It could be a function of, again, cortisol stress. It could be a function of poor timing when it comes to meals and fluid intake, right? It could simply be my bladder wakes me up all the time. Falling asleep is normally a factor of just simply too high cortisol. It's normally I've got too much stuff going on up here and I can't shut this off. And so turning this off to enable the melatonin to release, again, cortisol handing off to melatonin is very important transition. And it's important not to miss that window. I go to bed pretty consistently every night within 30 minutes. And if I miss my window, normally I can't fall asleep too quickly because my body is used to consistency. And so those would be different variables that could happen from someone staying asleep or being unable to fall asleep.
Got it. Okay. I really appreciate that. And I'll use his specific example because I think this is probably more common than we realize. But it's like decades of shift work, being on call, a high stress job that is very, very demanding where you could be contacted literally 24/7. And when you're contacted, you're only contacted because it's like the most stressful situation made it up to your level. For somebody like that, who
Yeah.
just has gotten used to that and like literally is getting through life sleeping 4 hours, 5 hours a day. Like you said earlier in this conversation, like we've proven scientifically that you really can't do that. This dude has to do it. And like I said, I think it's probably more common than we assume. Is there any hope for somebody like that who like literally is just put in that situation and has to respond to stress all the time?
Absolutely. That's why, we recommend Rebalance Health. Use any of our products. We've got firemen, a lot of firemen. We have a lot of military individuals, people with PTSD from being in Afghanistan, nurses and police. law enforcement, all of those types of individuals suffer from the same high stress, constantly being on call environments. Even our medical staff, doctors and nurses, are always on call. They suffer from being sleep deprived and trained to do so, right? Literally been trained to kind of thrive and operate within that high cortisol levels. And so using the Rebalance Health products help keep cortisol levels at bay and help you get into a sleep cycle that is effective. But it's going to take time. It's not a magic pill, right? You can't fix, as you said, decades of training and mental, plasticity and being able to survive on little sleep and function at a very high level. It takes a while to untrain that, but it's completely trainable, absolutely trainable. But you have to understand this cause and effect and take the right steps in order to get the results that you're looking for. But again,
Gotcha.
it doesn't happen overnight. It does take a little bit of time.
Okay, gotcha. I think that's a really hopeful message for people in that situation because you're right. All the fields of work that you described would all face that same kind of thing. I appreciate that. We've been talking about circadian rhythms. You mentioned the timing of food, which I absolutely agree with as well. You're talking to an audience that largely has found their way into some form of a low carbohydrate, ketogenic, maybe carnivore diet to help them with different health conditions. Not that they necessarily wanted to belong to a certain dietary recommendation or whatever, but just for their own health have found their way here. Are there any like general rules that you tend to recommend as far as stress and sleep, priorities that most people could benefit from eating for, whether they are doing, a quote unquote certain diet of some kind, or whether they're just trying to follow some good principles nutritionally?
Yeah, there's some fundamental principles that I believe in. It doesn't mean that you know everyone should believe in them, but if you go back and again you analyze the last 50 years, there's a diet for every season, right? Whether it's the South Beach diet, the paleo diet, the keto diet, right? You name it, there's 101 different diets. Okay. There's no secret to it. In my opinion of one, the best diet is a natural farm to table diet, organic wherever possible. And here's the kicker: eat less food than you burn. Basically, consume less calories than you burn in a day. There you go. That's the epiphany. If you eat more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. Simple as that. And if you have a tolerance or intolerance to gluten or dairy, you take all of that into consideration and do what's best for you. But it's amazing how many calories you consume when you're not paying attention. Because a little extra olive oil, a little extra avocado, you throwing on hundreds of calories. And where people make the mistake is they don't actually know how many calories they're consuming. And that's what you need to do. Track it for a week. Just track how many calories you consume and then figure out how much you actually burn. And the average human should take anywhere between, 1,800 and 2,500 calories a day, roughly, right? Most people are consuming double and they don't realize they're consuming double. And so I don't really have a opinion as to what the best diet is. I just think natural, organic, wherever possible, and whatever diet works for your personal body that you think is best. But don't starve yourself. Make sure it's balanced between good carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. I don't necessarily believe that carbohydrate depletion is the best thing because you need carbohydrates. And when it comes to exercise, lift weights. Just lift weights. You don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but lift weights. You need that for your bone health. You need that for your muscular health and just your vibrancy. Cardio, yeah, cardio is good. Again, big believer in going for a walk and doing that. But people that spend all their life running on a treadmill or on a spin bike, um, guys, you're burning if you're lucky, maybe 400 calories in an hour, and you can consume those calories that you burned in 30 seconds in the kitchen. And so I think that's the big disconnect. And cardio without weightlifting is going to be very difficult for you as you age because you need to keep the muscle on more than anything. Muscle, stretching, and some cardiovascular for sure. But just running or spinning or doing those exercises without weightlifting has been proven to not be the best kind of ratio.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, you're talking about the calories and trying to, eat the calories that you need. The thing that I find the most successful for most people is find the calories that make you feel very satiated and keep you from being hungry all the time. Ironically, what you're describing as far as like the cardio goes is so tricky because yes, you can make up those calories in 30 seconds in the kitchen, and you're going to be very hungry because you're doing exercise that will make you very hungry. It's a lot different when you're talking about the strength training. And again, if I'm telling somebody like I need you to, use more calories than you're consuming in a day, I want you to find the macronutrient that's going to keep you the most satiated and full, and that would be protein. Like focus on getting a decent amount of protein intake, and all the rest of the stuff will kind of take care of itself. Have you found that to be true as well?
Just again, there's nothing that you're saying that I disagree with. It's just a matter of finding the right balance. And I think when people actually track their calories, it's extremely eye-opening as to what they're consuming. And there's been lots of influencers that post, this is what I eat in a day, right? And say one is 1,800 calories, the other one is 3,200 calories. And they look almost identical, but one's got more butter and fats and other things in it, which again, in moderation is good, but you can easily overdo it without even thinking about it. So I do believe that there is some real eye-opening education if you track your calories just for 1 week and you go, oh my God, I had no idea I was consuming that many calories.
Yeah, I agree. And you have to be very honest when you're tracking the quantity of things you're eating. If you're just putting in one serving for something like cold cereal, like I've got news for you. No human has ever consumed just one serving of cold cereal in the history of cold cereal or humans. Like you have to be really, tight when you're tracking those calories, especially when it comes to quantity. And I think a week is a good time frame to really capture, what does your weekend look like? How is your week turning out? Tell us about some of the eating practices that you have. I believe you have a kind of a 2 meal a day kind of approach where you're spending most of the day in a fasted state. Is that correct? If I've heard that correctly?
Yeah, actually, you bring up something interesting, which is this fasted and this intermittent fasting. It's been well documented. Brecker talks about it all the time. Upon awakening, you only have about 20 to 30 minutes of glucose stored in your body before your body needs a new food source and to give itself energy. And everyone thinks, wow, it's the next food source is going to be fat. It's going to start burning fat. That's not the case. The body goes to muscle first because it takes about 3 minutes for the body to break down muscle. It takes about 4 to 5 hours for the body to start breaking down fat. So if you're starving yourself in the morning and you're not giving yourself some new energy sources, all you're doing is burning off yesterday's gains in muscle.
Interesting. That actually is completely different to what I see and observe with people like myself that eat a carnivorous diet, and I only eat 1 meal a day later in the day, and I track my weight and body fat percentage. I've tracked it on DEXA. I use the InBody quite regularly, and I actually don't see the muscle mass falling off ever. And I consume a zero carbohydrate diet. Could that be just the source of fuel that somebody's using? Like if somebody's more reliant on sugar for fuel, they will be catabolic in the morning if they don't get that meal. Whereas if somebody's more fat adapted, they can do something like I'm doing, like an intermittent fast, for years, literally just eating 1 meal a day around 7 p.m. and not see any loss of muscle mass, or any of my clients that have ever tried it as well. I'm just curious.
I don't have enough knowledge to speak at that level. I just know that through, best practices, even in, you look at the bodybuilders, you look at the fitness industry in general, you need to feed your body so it has an energy source. Otherwise, it will go towards muscle. It will take muscle mass and break it down versus fat. The kind of intermittent fasting has been proven to work on obese people, but no one else. And again, Bracker, Huberman, they all talk about this in depth as these studies have shown X, Y, and Z. For me personally, I believe in a large breakfast. I'll eat 4 eggs, fried eggs every day, along with about 350 grams of non-fat Greek yogurt with berries. And that's my breakfast. And that lasts me all the way through. And then I start making dinner for myself around 4:30. And I'll have a protein source followed by a salad. Actually, I post a lot of my food that I eat on my Instagram channel. It's very clean, very simple. I aim for about 1,800 calories a day. I wake up every morning at 4:30, and I'm at the gym and I work out for about 2 hours in the morning. I basically lift weights for an hour and I literally walk on the treadmill for an hour.
Love it. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'll have to keep watching that. That's a very interesting concept. But yeah, talking about your book, Stress Nation, is there any other topics that you were really excited to write about that we haven't covered in this conversation already?
Well, in Stress Nation, we have a couple of wonderful giveaways. Um, in the end of chapter one, there's a QR code that links to the website, which is stressnationbook.com. And we offer a free 5-day perimenopause survival guide and kind of help women understand what's actually happening from a scientific perspective and real tips and solutions on how to optimize their lifestyle so they can start to see diminishing symptoms. Also on the website, we have a health reset course. So again, completely free on the website that walks people through each chapter. There's a little video for each chapter, as well as a cortisol guide and some SMSs to help you throughout I think it's a 1 year program of SMSs where we give simple one-liners every morning to be able to help you conquer your day and support you through this process of understanding what the stresses are in your world and how you can combat them for your benefit.
Awesome. Those sound like amazing resources. You did remind me of something I did want to ask you as well. HRT, you mentioned that you're not opposed to it. How, for somebody who's nervous about doing HRT, they've heard messages on the news for the last 10, 20 years about HRT being harmful. How did we get the messaging so incorrect about HRT?
How did we get it incorrect? We got it incorrect because the pharmaceutical companies um, and the medical world is disjointed. It's not aligned. The bottom line is we all are experiencing diminishing production of hormones, and we live our lives longer than we ever have before. We also are asking more of our bodies than we ever have before in history, right? There's 70-year-olds running marathons, right? It's not something that used to occur in the 30s and the 40s, right? It just didn't happen. And so in those situations, your bodies are making very little, if any, hormones. And so HRT is applicable and appropriate for someone that is seeing diminishing hormone production from their bodies and they need to augment it. Makes perfect sense. Absolutely. There's people that have had accidents. There's people that have had different medical issues that require augmentation. Absolutely makes sense. The only issue I have with HRT is when there's a 28-year-old guy or girl that's going on it for, vanity reasons, right? I want to be shredded. I want to be jacked and so forth. Then they need to be told the truth by the doctors, which is once you start, let's take testosterone. Once you start on testosterone, all the studies have proven that within 12 to 18 months, you stand an 80% chance of your body never making that hormone again, even if you come off the hormone.
Wow.
Right? That's it. So you could potentially be on testosterone for the rest of your life. And some people say, I don't care. That's fine. But not everyone knows those facts. And that's the only beef I have with it is that as long as the doctors are disclosing the full facts, that makes sense. But here's the other variable. I wouldn't go to a dentist for Botox. I wouldn't go to an esthetician for gallbladder surgery. So why are people going to their general practitioners for HRT? You should be going to an endocrinologist. You should be getting full hormone blood panels every 90 days to track your hormones. Why? Well, you could be in a high stress environment today and your levels of HRT need to be slightly different. Then all of a sudden, you retire, you change jobs, you're not so stressed, you go on vacation. Now your hormone are completely out of whack because why? Your cortisol came down, you're getting more sleep, your body's making more hormones, and your HRT is throwing it out of whack. And so it is a constant quarterly evaluation of where you are and making adjustments to make sure that you're exactly where you need to be. And a good endocrinologist, OBGYN, even other doctors, so forth, that understand this, that's great. But it's the general practitioners that are tracking just testosterone. You go to the different clinics and all they do is track testosterone. All they track is estrogen and progesterone. They're not taking all of the hormones into consideration. And the best way I can explain this is think of your body like a pie, a birthday cake, right? There's a certain ratio of sugar, flour, water, that goes into making that cake. That's the same as your body. There's a certain ratio of the different hormones that you need to be you. And if you're only tracking one of them, you're doing yourself a disservice and other issues can present themselves. So really, when you look at HRT, it should be a holistic, complete experience, not just picking the favorite hormone that you need to boost, because there are serious medical consequences for going about it that way.
Yeah. Well said. I really like that. Justin, this has been an amazing conversation. I think there's a lot of really good practical tips and tricks. Like I said in the beginning, that go well beyond what I tell people to just have less stress. It's just that easy. Just have less stress and you'll be fine. It doesn't really work for a lot of people. So have this conversation and to go over your work and to learn about, getting more sleep, getting better sleep, how to set up our days and reduce the stress, I think is super, super helpful. So really grateful for you for taking the time out of your very busy life to chat with us today. Where would you like people to go to find you, connect with you and your work, connect with your company, and also find the book that's coming out in September of 2025?
Absolutely. So please go to rebalancehealth.com and look at the different products for supporting cortisol and helping you sleep at night. Again, lozenges, inexpensive products, scientifically backed and proven and published, which puts me probably in the top 1% of supplements in the world that have actually done that level of research.
Easily.
Right. So it actually works. And then if you want interested in the book, stressnationbook.com. We're on pre-order. We ship in literally 30 days. And, if you buy the book, you get all those different programs complimentary.
Excellent. We will link all that up in the show notes so people can easily find that. And like I said, Justin, I really appreciate you and all your work and for taking the time to come on our show today and educate us. Has been amazing. It's such an important topic and relevant for all of us. So thank you so very much for all of your work and thank you for taking time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate you. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. It was an honor. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.